Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, tariffs in effect. Americans brace as tariffs on nearly 70 U.S. trading partners become a reality today, raising import taxes to their highest level since the Great Depression. Those higher costs expected to be passed on to consumers.
I'm Mary Bruce at the White House with the details on which products will face the biggest increases and which companies are already feeling the heat.
Honoring the heroes. The day after that mass shooting at Fort Stewart, the Army Secretary honoring the men and women who jumped into action, unarmed, to save their fellow soldiers.
I'm Faith Abube at Fort Stewart with more on that extraordinary story of courage, plus the latest on that investigation into how the accused shooter brought a gun onto a military base.
This year's hurricane season now revving up, expected to have above average activity. Yet some FEMA employees could be temporarily reassigned to help ICE support its hiring surge. This on the heels of FEMA losing hundreds from its workforce. Former FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell joins us. In medical news, could a new daily weight loss pill be as effective as a weekly shot? And what are the side effects of this needle-free alternative? Plus, a new report from the CDC says that Americans get more than half, roughly 55% of their calories from ultra-processed foods. Our medical experts weigh in. Instagram rolls out a new, and some say controversial, friend map. And you may have already opted in without even knowing it. We'll show you how to control who sees what. And she's a pioneer, an icon, and one of the greatest to ever play the game. Basketball legend Diana Taurasi talks to Prime's Linsey Davis about her personal and professional journey on and off the court.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rhiannon Alley. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We want to begin tonight with American consumers now bracing for impact after President Trump's sweeping new tariffs took effect at midnight, the highest in nearly a century, and with dozens of America's biggest trading partners. In the Oval Office today, the president claiming every income group is doing better since he took office. But tariffs are beginning to put a drag on business earnings, from Caterpillar to Stanley, Black & Decker to Hershey. It is bringing down stocks. The Dow today closing down 224 points. And for everyday Americans, tariffs could cost the average household $2,400 a year. That is according to the nonpartisan Yale Budget Lab. The price of imported produce could rise 7%, and a new car could jump almost $6,000. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce leads us off now from the White House.
Tonight, American business owners and consumers bracing for impact as President Trump's tariffs on nearly every U.S. trading partner snapped into place, the highest tariffs in nearly 100 years. The president posting, "It's midnight. Billions of dollars in tariffs are now flowing into the United States of America." Those new tariffs ranging from 10 to a staggering 50%,
Brazil market,
leaving small business owners like Marcia Campos, who owns the Brazil Market and Butcher Shop in Marietta, Georgia, scrambling.
It's pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie. I am a little bit apprehensive what the next steps will be.
I've been making transitions.
Craig Battori owns Craig's Coffee in Detroit. He says he has no choice but to pass along higher prices to his consumers.
I was absorbing that cost at first, but now I'm actually increasing prices and slowly moving those costs to my customers.
The tariffs are paid by companies importing products, but economists warn these costs will likely be passed on to consumers. Americans could pay more for everything from electronics and toys to clothing and furniture. Fresh produce prices are expected to rise 7%. The average price of a new car could jump by $5,800 in the short run. By one estimate, the tariffs could cost the average household $2,400 a year. While it could take time for families to feel the effects, tonight companies worldwide are already reporting record losses because of the tariffs. Japan-based Toyota says it expects a $9.5 billion hit to its profits from the U.S. tariffs. And American cosmetics company e.l.f. Beauty reporting their profits fell 30% as new tariffs on Chinese imports took effect. But the president adamant his tariffs will boost manufacturing in the U.S.
Under the Trump administration, we're doing everything possible to make this the best place on earth to build a factory or grow businesses.
Now let's get right out to Mary Bruce at the White House tonight. And Mary, the president today also announcing major changes to Americans' 401k retirement plans.
Yeah, Rhiannon, millions of Americans who save for retirement through a 401k account could soon have the option of investing their money in private equity or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. Of course, many of the top cryptocurrency firms invested heavily in President Trump's campaign, and his own family's crypto ventures could stand to benefit from this. Rhiannon.
That would be a big change. Mary Bruce, live at the White House for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now to a mid-air scare on a transatlantic flight after a passenger's mobile charger sparked a fire. Here's ABC's Mola Lenghi with the dramatic new video we're seeing tonight.
Tonight, panic and chaos over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean after a fire erupted on a KLM flight from Sao Paulo to Amsterdam. Brazilian officials say it was sparked by a passenger's mobile charger. You can hear frantic passengers as crew members rushed to try to extinguish the fire as smoke filled the cabin, some on board covering their faces with pillows and towels to protect themselves. The crew finally able to put out the fire, and that flight touching down in Amsterdam as planned. Relieved passengers breaking out in applause as they landed. Well, Rhiannon, if you ever wonder why airlines always ask passengers to remove and to keep their lithium batteries with them in the cabin and not in their checked luggage, well, this is why. Rhiannon?
We are so glad everyone's okay. Mola Lenghi, thank you for that. United Airlines passengers are back in the skies after a nationwide ground stop delayed more than 1,000 flights and sent ripple effects across the country's airports. The ground stop started last night when United said there was a technical issue with its weight and balance computer system. 40 flights were canceled, and the airline covered meals and hotels for impacted customers. The issue was resolved this morning, but the airline said to expect residual delays. And tonight, an investigation is now underway in Pennsylvania after 2 state troopers were ambushed, responding to a woman's call for help. Here's Aaron Katursky with what we know now.
Tonight, 2 state troopers ambushed and shot in northeastern Pennsylvania.
State Route 171 at Thompson Township. Stage out from the scene. Multiple gunshot victims.
It happened just after 11 a.m. in Susquehanna County when the troopers responded to a woman's call for help during a domestic dispute, and they immediately came under fire.
Upon their arrival, they were immediately fired upon and ambushed. They are very lucky to be alive.
Troopers Joseph Perchinsky and William Jenkins were airlifted to the hospital after a man shot at them with a rifle. Perchinsky put a tourniquet on his partner, who officials say was shot in the chest and back. Tonight, the governor praising the troopers' actions.
He acted decisively, he acted thoughtfully, and the work he did today exemplifies the absolute best of the Pennsylvania State Police.
When the gunfire stopped, police said the woman and the armed suspect were both found dead. In just the last 2.5 years, Rhiannon, these are now the 5th and 6th Pennsylvania State Police troopers shot in the line of duty. Rhiannon?
Thanks to Eric Katursky for that. At least 2 people are dead after the helicopter they were riding in crashed into a barge on the Mississippi River. Authorities say the chopper was doing electrical work in the area before the crash. The NTSB now investigating what could have gone wrong. Here's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, 2 people are dead after authorities say this helicopter clipped a power line and crashed into a barge on the Mississippi River, north of St. Louis.
And it's exploding right now. It's exploding right now.
The chopper catching fire, smoke billowing into the sky.
The Coast Guard received a report of a helicopter crashing and landing on a barge. All vessels are requested to maintain a sharp lookout, assist if possible.
All of a sudden it touched the line, and in 2 seconds it wasn't a helicopter anymore. It was 1,000 pieces.
The crash happening around 11 a.m., prompting a massive response. Officials shutting down river traffic and closing part of the nearby Lewis and Clark Bridge.
There are hazardous materials, including propane, on the barge and electrical lines in the water.
Officials evacuating the immediate area. A local electrical contractor confirming to ABC News the helicopter was assisting with repairs to a tower when the crash happened.
And the NTSB is investigating this tonight. They also say the electrical contractor is cooperating in that probe, Rhiannon. They also say no one on the barge was injured in this crash. Rhi?
That is good news. Morgan, thank you. 24 hours after a mass shooting in Fort Stewart in Georgia, the Army is now honoring 6 soldiers for their heroic actions during the attack, some of them running into danger to aid the wounded. The Army Secretary said their fast action saved lives from being lost. ABC's Faith Abube is at Fort Stewart tonight.
Rhiannon, Army investigators are drawing up charges against that accused shooter. He's likely to be moved to a military facility. Meantime, his fellow soldiers are being recognized for their extraordinary display of courage.
The Meritorious Service Medal.
At Fort Stewart today, Army Secretary Dan Driscoll honoring the men and women who jumped into action to save lives when investigators say a fellow soldier opened fire on the base, wounding 5 of their own.
They were unarmed and ran at and tackled an armed person who they knew was actively shooting their buddies, their colleagues, their fellow soldiers.
Sergeant Turner exhibited extraordinary courage.
The Army Secretary embracing Sergeant Aaron Turner, who confronted and disarmed the accused shooter. 28-year-old Sergeant Cornelius Radford seen here being transferred to jail after his arrest. Sergeant Turner saying Radford claimed he wasn't going to hurt fellow soldiers and that he was focused on leadership.
He's not going to end up hurting any of the soldiers. It's pretty much dealing with leadership.
He was dealing with leadership and he wanted to go home.
Yep.
Turner says he grabbed the suspect and disarmed the gun and with the help of another soldier, stopped him from reloading. Was there a struggle?
Yes, the whole time through.
He was fighting back?
Yeah, we're trying to hold it.
Other soldiers ran toward the gunfire to treat the wounded.
I'd look up and a soldier saying, I got shot, I got shot, I got shot. Immediately put the soldier on the ground, got the top off, rendered aid, tried to stop bleeding.
And we just kept him stable until the ambulance got there.
Tonight, the Army says they're continuing their investigation into Radford and how he allegedly got a personal gun inside Fort Stewart. Sergeant Turner says he saw no warning signs. Did you consider him a friend?
Yeah. As far as the interactions, you've never seen anything wrong with him. He's always a happy-go-lucky guy.
And Faith Abube joins us now. Faith, do we know how the victims are doing tonight?
Rhiannon, Army officials were happy to report that 3 of the victims have been released from the hospital. There are 2 that are still there. However, all 5 are expected to make a full recovery. Rhiannon.
That is great news, Faith Abube. Thank you for that. Millions of Americans are on alert tonight as record-shattering heat hits states across the West and the Plains. Phoenix recording its hottest August day on record there. ABC's Trevor Ault is in Palm Springs, California, where it's too hot for some planes to land.
Tonight, multiple wildfires in record-breaking heat baking the West. North of Los Angeles, the Canyon Fire igniting in Ventura County. The temperature near 100 degrees, winds gusting to 25 miles per hour.
But the fire continuing to burn out of control, spreading rapidly towards the east.
Outside San Diego at Fletcher Hills Elementary School in El Cajon, it was an extremely hot first day back to school.
We have a backup plan for high heat where students will eat and play indoors.
Phoenix hitting 118 degrees today, shattering a daily record for the second day in a row. The numbers extreme even for them. And in Colorado, record temperatures fueling multiple wildfires. The Lee Fire erupting overnight, now some 70 square miles in size, threatening the town of Meeker. Back in California, the Gifford Fire north of Santa Barbara is now the largest fire in the state so far this year, burning more than 150 square miles.
And with hurricane season in full swing and that hurricane forecast still predicted to be above normal, some FEMA employees will be temporarily detailed to help ICE support their hiring surge. The DHS says this will not impact FEMA's critical operations. This comes as FEMA has lost hundreds from its workforce in recent months. The agency was supposed to overhaul their plan for hurricane season, but sources tell ABC the acting administrator didn't act fast enough and reverted back to the Biden administration's plan for the season. So joining us now for more on this is the head of FEMA under President Biden, Deanne Criswell. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Rhiannon.
So I want to ask you, what was your initial reaction after you heard the news that FEMA staffers were being reassigned in the middle of hurricane season?
Well, I think it's important to note in the beginning is that often members from across the department get reassigned on a voluntary basis to support other parts of the department. That activity is not something new, but typically what would happen, especially if it's right before hurricane season, is it would also have to go through a supervisor approval to ensure that it doesn't have an impact on their readiness to be able to respond. And from what I have been reading, it sounds like this wasn't a voluntary reassignment. And so my concern is, does FEMA have the ability to bring those people back in case you have a major storm that impacts the United States and they need that staff to help support those communities that are going to be facing a long recovery?
And you mentioned readiness to respond. This specifically affects human resource staff. So a lot of people might be wondering, do those people play a critical role if there is a disaster?
Oh, absolutely, Rhiannon. What we do and what FEMA does after a storm hits is one of the things and one of the tools to help improve the staffing or increase the staffing is hire local hires. And so those staff, those human resources staff, they are critical to make sure we can bring on people from the community or process new reservists that sign on so we can meet the need of the moment. And then there's also security personnel that have been reassigned. So those personnel have to vet all of the new employees, but they also have another role. They have to be able to make sure that our facilities are safe for people to go into and that they coordinate very closely with local law enforcement. Those activities, the need doesn't go away. And so where they're going to get the staff if they can't get these employees back is really going to be a question to ask when a storm happens.
And I assume you still know a lot of people at FEMA. And taking a step back, what type of people typically apply to work at FEMA? Would they also possibly be interested in these reassignments working at ICE?
People come to FEMA because of the mission. When I would walk the halls at FEMA and I would talk to people and hear they've been here 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years, I would ask them, why do they stay? And they always say it's because of the mission, because they want to help people before, during, and after disasters. And so if they're being reassigned permanently to another agency that doesn't have that mission, then that's not what they signed up for, to be with a public servant. And so I would worry that you would see additional people that might leave the federal government because it's not what they signed up to do.
Were you surprised to hear the acting administrator follow the agency's hurricane plan that was set while you were running it?
Well, I think, when you have somebody that comes into that level of a position, they need to rely on the expertise of the people below them when they don't have emergency management experience. And so I'm at least happy that he recognizes that there are good people in place and that there were plans and procedures that have worked effectively in the past. And we want to make sure that he uses their skills and their knowledge to be able to implement those as we see continued storms happen throughout the rest of this year.
And finally, we are still in the middle of hurricane season. There's a lot of time left to go. Is there anything that maybe keeps you up at night or that's always on your mind with regards to FEMA and hurricane preparedness?
Well, it's hard not to mention the fact that in just a few weeks, we're going to be facing the 20-year anniversary of Katrina. And we have seen so much improvement in those 20 years to create an agency that is more agile and able to support communities. During my entire time as FEMA administrator, I never had any state complain about FEMA's ability to respond. They have lots of frustration with some of the processes that happen during recovery. And so as we continue to go forward into hurricane season, I would argue that the response piece of what FEMA does is not broken. And if we try to fix something that's not broken, we're just going to go back to pre-Hurricane Katrina days. And we saw how that turned out.
Former FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
President Trump continuing his crackdown on higher education this afternoon, signing a memo requiring colleges that receive federal funding to share race-based admissions data with the federal government. The White House says the measure aims to ensure that universities are not participating in affirmative action, which the Supreme Court did rule as unconstitutional back in 2023. The memo instructs the Secretary of Education to take action against institutions that don't provide that data. Now to that developing headline on a possible face-to-face meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. The White House today appearing to change course on the conditions of that meeting. Late today, President Trump saying it does not need to include President Zelensky. So let's get right out to Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz with the latest. Martha, what are you learning tonight?
Rhiannon, President Trump had wanted a summit together with Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's President Zelensky. But tonight, President Trump saying he is now open to meeting just one-on-one with Putin. Putin made clear today that a meeting with Zelensky is off the table for now, saying that conditions for that are still far away. Trump had threatened to hit Russia with new sanctions tomorrow if a ceasefire was not reached. Asked tonight if that deadline still holds, the president said That will be up to Putin. The Russians have suggested the meeting will take place soon, in the coming days. Putin saying it could be held in the UAE. Rhiannon?
All right, Martha, thank you for that update. Tonight, a major escalation in the war in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu saying Israel intends to take control of all of Gaza. Our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, joins us now from Israel. And Ian, what could these comments mean for ceasefire negotiations and the remaining hostages?
Yeah, Rhiannon, this is a significant and controversial decision. And frankly, it flies in the face of international and domestic opposition, which seems to be growing. Expanding the war to occupy all of Gaza effectively ends any short-term hopes of a ceasefire and means hundreds of thousands of people being forcibly relocated in the midst of what most aid agencies say is a humanitarian crisis. At the moment, the Israeli military occupies something around 75% of the territory. The other 25% is where most people live, and that's the area that the Israelis are talking about going into now. Military leaders fear it could take months and risks Israeli forces becoming bogged down with no clear exit strategy. There have been widespread demonstrations in most major cities across Israel this evening against the plans, and the families of the hostages still being held in Gaza are condemning the move. What they're saying is that it will endanger the lives of their loved ones. The opposition growing, but Netanyahu seems absolutely determined to go ahead with this. Rhiannon?
Ian in Tel Aviv tonight, thank you. We are tracking several headlines around the world. Dramatic video from Poland shows the moment a train slammed into a van that was stuck on a railway crossing. The van attempted to beat the signal at a crossing, but got trapped as the barriers came down there. Moments later, a train plowed into the vehicle, pushing it down the tracks. Miraculously, police say the driver escaped without any injury. A new wildfire has erupted in northern Turkey more than a week after another blaze that burned for 6 days was contained. Turkey's forestry agency says 2 firefighting planes, 12 helicopters, dozens of fire trucks, and hundreds of firefighters are battling the flames, which has spread to local homes. It is the latest in a summer of severe wildfires across Turkey, fueled by record heat, dry conditions, and strong winds. And Peruvian archaeologists have uncovered new evidence of early ritual practices at the ancient Pueymape temple. Excavations reveal human activity dating all the way back to 2200 BC, making it one of the region's oldest known ceremonial centers. 14 skeletons, buried face down with their hands tied, suggest possible ritual sacrifices or post-conflict burials by the culture. Experts say the findings could reshape understanding of early worship and burial traditions along Peru's coast. 24 years after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the New York City Medical Examiner announcing the identification of 3 victims from the World Trade Center. Ryan Fitzgerald of New York and Barbara Keating of California are 2 of the victims now identified through new and more advanced DNA analysis. The Medical Examiner's office has never stopped testing the remains. It has now identified a total of 1,653 victims. That is a little more than half the lives lost. Coming up, how times have changed. A new report shows that young adults today are falling short of meeting key milestones that once identified adulthood. We'll show you which ones. Plus, the latest and greatest in artificial intelligence, what you need to know about the new ChatGPT model that was unveiled just hours ago. Welcome back. A fascinating new working paper from the U.S. Census Bureau is revealing just how much the priorities of 25 to 34-year-olds have changed since 1975. The study of the data showing today's young adults are prioritizing economic security over any desire to marry or even start a family. And that is tonight's By the Numbers. In 1975, 45% of 25 to 34-year-olds reported reaching the 4 key milestones of adulthood, defined as living away from their parents, working in the labor force, and having been married with children. But by last year, just 21% of 25 to 34-year-olds had reached those same 4 milestones. It's now much more common for young adults in that same age group, 28% actually, to be gainfully employed and living on their own, but without a spouse or children. Well, that wouldn't have cut it for most young adults back in 1975. A mere 6% back then lived in the same fashion. Of course, these figures simply demonstrate life costs much more now, and women have opportunities today that they simply didn't have 50 years ago. In 1975, 22% of adults were not in the workforce, but were living away from their parents, had children, and had been married at least once. By last year, less than 8% of 25 to 34-year-olds were saying the same. Coming up, it's technology nothing short of remarkable, allowing a doctor to perform surgery in one location with a robot thousands of miles away maneuvering the scalpel.
The same as if I'm in the room. Better, actually, because I can actually see what anesthesia is doing. It's much better.
And California scientists have noticed blue whales not singing as often as they once did. We'll tell you what they believe is the cause. Imagine yourself hospitalized, needing surgery, but there is no surgeon in sight. Well, one day, perhaps soon, that will no longer be a problem. ABC News was recently invited to report on the very first FDA-approved human trial testing robotic telesurgery. In this case, a doctor in Orlando, Florida, removing prostate cancer from a patient nearly 7,000 miles away in the African country of Angola. ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton has this exclusive story. And a warning, our story does feature images from a live surgery.
All right, you guys can see us, we can see you. Well, here's the next step, the future of surgery.
It's a life-saving surgery this doctor has done tens of thousands of times.
It's the same as if I'm in the room. Better, actually, because I can actually see what anesthesia is doing. It's much better.
Dr. Vipul Patel is the medical director of the Global Robotic Institute at Advent Health in Orlando, Florida. And his patient today is a 67-year-old man who lives in Angola, where treatment options are limited.
Prostate cancer is very prevalent in Africa and especially Angola. But in the past, they really haven't monitored it well, or they haven't had treatments.
The patient, who agreed to be the first to participate in an FDA clinical trial testing a robotic surgery to be performed remotely, needs advanced surgical treatment to remove the cancer from his prostate.
This is a robotic console. It's attached to a robot, and it's attached to a robot that does surgery in patients in operating rooms all over the world.
Usually, these procedures are done with the surgeon in the room. But this time, Patel and his team were working to test whether it could be done remotely across the Atlantic Ocean in what would normally be a 14-hour flight. Unlike a typical surgery, Dr. Patel doesn't need to scrub in. Instead, he sits at a multi-million-dollar machine with a three-dimensional screen and nimble controls with haptic feedback.
It's about an hour and 20 minutes, which is about my standard time here. So it felt the same. You know, he's a young guy. He wanted his cancer cured.
How do you communicate with your team across an ocean?
We had all the cameras in both ORs. Our team, we work so much together, it's almost telepathic. So we don't say much to each other, but our team on the ground there was speaking a lot with the local team, and we could hear them. All three are set.
It's the first robotic telesurgery from the U.S. to an international location since 2001. That procedure, famously called the Limburg operation, named after the first person who flew across the Atlantic from America to Europe.
It was a different robotic system, it was different telecom, and the procedure was successful, but it wasn't really reproduced for this whole time, 2 decades later. And the reason is the robots weren't quite compatible, the telecom was still slow, everything hadn't come together yet.
Now, with advancements in technology, engineers have been able to curtail many of the issues that can come up during a complex procedure from a distance.
How does it look? How are the images and audio, video?
Everything great.
Perfect.
Everything great. I think we should do 5 more today.
Yeah, I mean, 11,000 kilometers away, it feels pretty good.
25 years after that Limburg operation, Dr. Patel's surgical team used a direct fiber optic network. That's a total distance of about 10,000 miles.
We're using direct fiber from Orlando to Miami, Miami down to Fortaleza in Brazil, and across the ocean to Luanda in Angola. And so you see the distance 17,000 kilometers. Throughout the procedure, it was about 140 milliseconds stable, so there was no perceptible delay in my brain.
The delay is so short that it's not noticeable by the brain.
Exactly, it's not perceptible. I always have my team where the patient is. So in case something happened with telecom, which can, I'm sure, the team would just take over and finish the case and do it safely.
The first FDA-approved remote surgery was a success.
All right, why don't you switch it over and then let's sew this back. First ever prostate removed from the United States to Africa. So at least we done that part. Now we have to put it all back together.
And now Dr. Patel plans to do more.
In terms of the clinical trial and the FDA approval, what other steps will happen after this?
Well, I think we have to do more cases with the trial, and then we will present the data back to the FDA. I think that what they're looking for is safety and redundancy and reliability and making sure the patients did fine. And that's our interest too.
We talked about treating prostate cancer today. What are some other examples where this type of technology can be used to help people?
I think the most needs-based case would be telestroke and cardiac. Those are the two where people die quickly in a short period of time. And so if we could do remote stroke surgery, remote cardiac stenting, clot removals, you would save huge amount of lives. Emergency room physicians will have technology that can be remotely accessible to surgeons, maybe even in the ambulance, where people can get remote interventions if they can't make it to the hospital. So this is where telesurgery will really have an impact on a broader level. All right.
It's really amazing how far medical technology has come. Coming up, the controversy over water levels after they were raised around a boating trip by Vice President Vance and his family. And pioneer, icon, and one of the greatest to ever play in the WNBA. Our Linsey Davis sits down with legend Diana Taurasi. A river's water levels raised so Vice President J.D. Vance could allegedly go boating for his birthday. ChatGPT unveils its latest model, and a pregnant woman rescued after a heart attack while chasing her dog. Those stories and much more in tonight's Rundown. The U.S. Secret Service recently had the levels of the Ohio River raised so Vice President J.D. Vance could allegedly go boating for his birthday, according to a report in The Guardian. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers told ABC they temporarily increased outflow from a lake connected to the river. The Secret Service says it worked with the department to conduct operational planning to ensure that motorized watercraft and emergency personnel could operate safely during a recent visit. ABC News has reached out to Vance's office for comment. An Ohio woman is thanking her neighbors and medics for saving her life after she suddenly collapsed last month. Tracy Anson, who was 27 weeks pregnant, had a heart attack while chasing her dog after it escaped. She collapsed in the middle of the street. Thankfully, her stepson and a neighbor trained in CPR immediately jumped into action. Two other Good Samaritans, including a nurse, pulled over to help before medics arrived. Anson was rushed to the hospital where she had an emergency C-section.
Definitely God has had his hand in all of this, and it's not just a miracle, it's a double miracle because both me and my baby were both saved.
OpenAI launched its new GPT-5 artificial intelligence model today. Founder Sam Altman said for the first time in history, the model offers PhD-level intelligence. In addition to software development, the company said the latest model excels in writing, health-related queries, and finance. GPT-5 will also use test-time compute to answer the questions, the first time the general public will have access to this type of technology from OpenAI. A group of thieves targeted a store in Southern California early Wednesday morning known for selling those viral Labubu plush toys. One Stop Sales shared surveillance video of the break-in on social media saying all of their inventory was taken, reportedly worth an estimated $10,000. The store had been promoting its inventory on social media in the days ahead of the break-in. There has been a drop in the sound of the blue whales singing off the coast of California. Researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute tracked the songs of 3 whale species in the North Pacific Ocean over 6 years, beginning in 2015. They found blue whale songs decreased by 40% during the study. Scientists say a toxic algae bloom and warmer waters around that time may be to blame. Two fishermen got the catch of a lifetime off the Connecticut coast, a 700-pound thresher shark.
It was just ginormous. It was huge.
The shark was 16 feet long. Officials say, if confirmed, the weight to be at 700 pounds, it would break records for the largest shark caught off of Connecticut's waters. Talent manager and ex-husband of singer Kelly Clarkson, Brandon Blackstock, has died. Blackstock battled cancer for more than 3 years. In light of the news, Clarkson abruptly announced she would be postponing her Las Vegas residency for the second time so that she could be there for her children. Blackstock and Clarkson share 2 children. He is also survived by 2 children from a previous marriage and a grandson. He was just 48 years old. And another passing to note, an icon of Latin jazz and salsa, Eddie Palmieri, died yesterday in New York. A New York-born Puerto Rican, Palmieri is widely regarded as one of the greatest musical minds of the last century. Over the years, the legendary performer went from playing in his uncle's Harlem-based band to the world stage, creating a bold new style of music. He won 9 Grammy Awards over the course of his career. He was 88. Well, the NFL's preseason officially starts tonight, and this year there is a new rule that sent some players into a bit of panic mode this week. Teams can no longer supply players with smelling salts during games. Morgan Norwood has details.
The NFL running interference on smelling salts. The league has ordered teams to stop supplying players with those pungent packets of ammonia for an extra jolt of energy or to get in the zone. The new rule is rubbing some NFL stars the wrong way.
Touchdown, 49ers!
San Francisco 49er George Kittle furious, telling the NFL Network he used them before every offensive drive.
Our team got a memo today that smelling salts and ammonia packets were made illegal in the NFL.
Wow.
And I've been distraught all day. We got to figure out a middle ground here, guys. Somebody help me out. Somebody come up with a good idea.
Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield less than thrilled.
I think it was a quick trigger to ban him. I'm going to be severely affected, to be honest with you.
Smelling salts come in a variety of different forms, inhalers, packets, and are medically mostly used to treat fainting victims. But once the fumes are inhaled, it clears out nasal passages and sends a perceived jolt of adrenaline through the body, which is why many athletes find them useful. But the NFL is working to curb concussions, which are down 17% from the 2023 season.
This was a step that we felt that we needed to take as a league to make sure that our clubs were not providing something that we know, A, doesn't provide any sports benefit or advantage, and B, does have some potential downsides, and C, has also been discouraged from the FDA.
The league citing an FDA warning from 2024, saying they're not safe and can mask the symptoms of a concussion, writing the FDA noted potential negative effects from ammonia inhalant use. They also have the potential to mask certain neurologic signs and symptoms, including some potential signs of concussion.
Many of these players want their smelling salts and they want to get back out there. But potentially masking signs or symptoms of a concussion and ignoring a potentially significant brain injury could really be devastating in the long term.
Our thanks to Morgan for that. The NFL itself did ban the use of ammonia inhalants earlier this week and then walked that back, leaving the league's Players Association to clarify that players are still permitted to use the inhalants, but only as long as team employees have not provided them. Well, she is a pioneer, an icon, and one of the greatest to ever play the game. These words describe basketball legend Diana Taurasi. Her personal and professional journey is now being told in a 3-part docuseries called Taurasi, which follows her basketball journey from the NCAA to the WNBA. Our Linsey Davis sat down with Taurasi to talk about her becoming one of the most accomplished athletes of all time, her retirement, and what's next.
The GOAT, iconoclast, the white mamba, Diana Taurasi, transformed women's basketball. And now we get a closer and more intimate look at the mother, the daughter of immigrants, the sister, wife, and friend. Taurasi is a documentary showcasing the trials and tribulations that created the firebrand. Let's take a look.
My parents came to this country with literally nothing, didn't know the language, and 20 years later, they still don't.
Yo no sé hablar mucho.
But I learned so much from them. It's going to work every single day to be the best player on the court.
As a freshman, she started filling up our gym. There was standing room only to watch her play.
Went from being the best kid on every team I ever played on, got to UConn and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna play this year. I just said that. It kind of made me look in the mirror. I got to push myself in ways that I didn't think I could be pushed.
She took it to another level.
Miss Taurasi, great to have you here with us. Thank you so much. What a privilege to be able to sit and chat. Tell us how this documentary came about.
Yeah, well, it was something that, kind of came from nothing. I was approached by Amazon Prime, and it was something that I never had in the back of my mind. I'm very private when it came to my basketball career. In a world where everything is out there, I kind of wanted it to be mine, but it got to a point where I thought it was a cool story to share to the world.
A lot of people will credit you with opening the door, really. How do you think the WNBA has changed from when you first started to where it is now? And it really feels like it's having a moment.
The league has changed in so many great ways, but I think the most important thing is to make sure to know where the league was. But all those things made us better. It made this league what it is today, and that's why the hardcore fan of the WNBA loves it so much, because the players give everything for it. And now we're seeing, the explosion in the media and on TV. And, that's what you want to do. You want to leave it better than when you got there.
You mentioned at one point when you were playing in the WNBA, you were making $42,000 for the season. And that's ultimately part of the reason why you end up going and playing in Russia. And you say something about that moment. Have a clip we want to play.
Going overseas is where you made most of your money. We had to go to Russia, to a communist country, to get paid like a capitalist.
What do you think about that today? Do you feel like the money is here? Obviously, there's been a lot of attention on salary, pay me what you owe me for those WNBA players.
Well, the whole point was always to play at home, was to spend the whole year in the U.S. And, I did that, and a lot of players did that. They went to Russia, Turkey, Italy, Spain for most of the year. And, we would talk about it. And the whole point was we were the best players in the world in the best league, and we weren't getting compensated like that.
There's a point also where you talk about how you feel like you got to fight everyone. And then a point where you say, I don't feel like I have to fight anymore. Where did you get that fight from initially that helped you become great?
I thought about it after I retired. I'm like, what was it? And I was petty.
She was always ready for the WNBA. The WNBA just wasn't ready for Diana.
Here comes big money.
Everything pissed me off. Every little thing on the court, I took it personal, and I just fed off of it. And that was the kind of passion that I played with, that I had. And I got to the point 20 years later where, I said, I'm full. I feel good about what I've done.
Give us a sense. Is there another chapter that you're already thinking about?
I can't see myself not being in basketball in some sort. I love it. I love watching it. I love, criticizing it. I love seeing different players in the young generation. So, I'm still looking forward to see what's in the future.
What do you make of the comparisons between you and Caitlin Clark?
I love it for her. She's just such an amazing talent. What she did at Iowa and now doing in the WNBA is just amazing. We need players like Caitlin to take the torch and take it to different heights.
She was one of the players I really grew up idolizing.
That's what basketball's about. That's what sport's about. You try to lay the foundation, and you want the next generation to just keep going.
One aspect that is not included in the documentary is your relationship with Brittany Griner. Give us a sense of what that time was like while she was in Russia.
BG, we spent so much time together, since she was a rookie. We were together in Phoenix for 10 years, and it was heartbreaking. We've always relied on each other on the court, off the court. We have this great friendship, and to know there's not much you could do to help her in that situation was heartbreaking for her family, for her friends, for our whole league. But it all turned out in a way that we're happy about. Obviously, she came back, and now she's thriving.
You also had a very close relationship with Kobe Bryant. You spoke at his service. He was Black Mamba, you White Mamba.
Watching Kobe play at the Great Western Forum as a rookie made this little girl believe she could be a Laker one day. It was like getting to know myself every single day. He made it okay to play with an edge that borderlined crazy. Early onset Mamba mentality was in full effect.
Give us a sense of what we all lost, but you obviously knowing him very privately, personally.
Yeah, it was a huge loss. Anytime I talk about Kobe, I still have this sense of that didn't happen. You know, I still have really not come to terms with it. When I talk about him or when I see him on TV, I just see him as this not only amazing competitor that taught me so much, but a person that was going to do so much more for his family, for the game. I mean, Kobe was the first one to show up to a WNBA game with the orange hoodie when it wasn't popular, you know, and he did that for his daughters because he loved the game of basketball at its purest form.
What do you want to see happen for the WNBA? Where do you feel like the momentum is still potentially lacking?
Yeah, you know, we talk about the momentum in the media and the coverage and the ticket sales, but at the end of the day, salaries do have to get better. I think that is the one thing that we all agree on as a basketball community with the WNBA, ex-players, to me has always been number one. How do we make sure the players are getting taken care of? And hopefully that can get done.
Hey, Dinah, thank you
so much, Linsey.
so much for your time.
I
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I am a huge fan of the W and of Diana Taurasi. Our thanks to Linsey and Diana for that. All 3 episodes of Taurasi are available now exclusively on Prime Video. That's our show for this half hour. I'm Rhiannon Alley. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us.